Apparently in the last talk I forgot to introduce myself, so I'm Chris McDonald. At this point, if you've been in this room all day, this is the third or fourth time you've heard from me. So if you didn't know that, you haven't been paying attention. So we're going to go a little deeper dive into RaceDay Registration and Check-in. Ideally, this is kind of a higher level overview on it, but we're going to start out on that higher level overview and go through some suggested settings and best practices. Hopefully we can make it through that in a reasonable amount of time. And then what I would really like to do and what I think that you would get the most benefit from is talk about some of the challenges that you guys face on site. So I'll get to a certain point, I'll stop and kind of give you guys a suggested setup of packet pickup. I'm not saying you have to do it this way. I'm not saying that this is the only way to do it or the best way. It is a way to do it, and it works quite well with our tools. It decreases volunteers and, in my opinion, decreases some of the headache. So going into this, some timer responses. Do your races view you as a technology expert? We've kind of continued talking about this, and there's a reason behind it. So a race might contact us one-on-one. You guys contact us, and you're contacting us on like a 50 unit or 100 units of races. So if we can train you how to do this stuff, you can then help us implement that on site. We talked about this a bit earlier too in regards to how many events does your company time. That little tiny one at the bottom is 1 to 10. So I think there's 7% of the responses of the survey were people only timing less than 10 races. So most of you guys are timing quite a bit. The main area when we did the survey of things that you wanted to improve in what you offer to races was your race day registration experience. And so that doesn't pin on just race day registration, because a number of what you guys brought up was not just race day registration, but the entire like bib assignment, check-in, kind of all-in-one scenario. So we thought we would chat with you directly about those two topics. And I say bib assignment and check-in because raise your hand if you're doing dynamic bib assignment at some race throughout the year. Okay, so a number of you still aren't. And there are some, and I'll get to some things that people said about reasons why they don't. And there are reasons in some events to not do dynamic bib assignment. But I do think it's a tool that might come in handy for you on occasion or more frequently than you would think. So on race day, you're focused on a number of things. You know, you get up early, get on site, start setting things up. You need everything to work. You don't need to be focused on whether or not your data is going to come into your scoring software, or if check-in is going to be a problem, or if your volunteers are going to understand how to use the tools that you've put out there, because there have been plenty of times where I get to a race and I start in on setting up, like throwing out mats or making sure that everything's synced, that my GPS is locked. And I have somebody standing over me saying, the Chromebook won't turn on, you know, or we don't know the password to get into Expo mode. And that's not on RunSignup. That's on me for forgetting to tell my lead volunteer who I handed the Chromebook to what the password is. So a lot of these things that I'm going to talk about, the focus is going to be on like how best to use these tools and making sure the integrations are working well. So with the statements regarding the race day registrations, so somebody pointed out credit card data security becoming more of an issue. We need a quick, simple solution for race day check-in. This person was mentioning that they currently were using paper registration and they needed a way to pivot over without stressing about data security. We still use paper-based lists because it's cheap, fast, we don't have to worry about computers not working. I understand that. However, at some point, you're going to limit your ability to scale because of that process. And more people are signing up on race day. We need to automate this. So again, reasons why, or things that we're going to talk about in regards to the race day registration experience and best practices to kind of resolve some of these things. In terms of check-in bib assignment, a number of you mentioned that you're trying to move more races over to dynamic bib assignment. How many of you guys are still putting labels on bibs? So a number of you. And does it take a good bit of, I mean, if you're I don't even need to ask this question. I put enough labels on bibs that I know for a fact that if it's a decent sized race, you're hooking someone else into this situation. Maybe you're watching like the Thursday night football game, but you and your wife or husband are sitting there having to, for hours, putting labels on bibs. And the best, as you all know, is when you're sitting there and maybe you had a beer or something like that, and one of them didn't stick on or something happened and you got off by one and you realize, oh crap, and you go back one, and you go back one, and you go back 10, and then you're like, oh boy, need to focus. So again, like, I get it. I've been there. And I'm not saying that in every scenario this is applicable. There are 100% race scenarios where it's very helpful to have bib labels. But if you think about some of your other races that might not like mandate that you have this, dynamic might be a way to go. So let's see, there's a fear of technology and it surprises the younger generation. I point this out only because somebody came up to me earlier and they were like, and I see everybody at once, so I'm not sure if you're in this room, but somebody said, my problem is that we have an aging population at the races that we put on. And so our volunteers are older. How do I fix this? How do I get my volunteers to the point where they can use this technology when, I watch them on their cell phone and it takes them like one finger at a time, like there's no way. And, I said, well, what about your National Honor Society or Beta Club, and maybe trying to integrate them into that they have to do volunteer hours. And if they can come and do it all in one morning, done. They're excited about it. I said that thinking, this is a great idea. I need to implement it. Somebody was behind me and said, oh yeah, we took it a step further. We, with our running club, decided that we were going to create a scholarship fund for local runners. And it was mandated in order for you to apply for this scholarship fund for like a $500 scholarship. So they gave out $500 to a male, $500 to a female. So $1,000 a year, they had to volunteer at a race. And you can make that 2 races, you can make that 3 races. Again, creative ways to get younger people involved. Because I promise you one thing, you start getting younger people involved with the check-in app, like you don't have as many technology issues. You don't. So RaceDay registration. Why use it? Increase revenue with little effort, especially and in your head, you might be thinking, we just talked about this a couple talks ago. Yeah, you can bring in more registration, but what you need to remember is, especially for you partners, and I realize this is maybe not something that's on your mind all the time, but every time somebody walks up and pays cash, you're not getting rev share. Right? So if all of a sudden, if you think about all the walk-ups, let's say 5% or 10% of all your races are walk-up registrations, and they're using paper, not only are you working harder and your data is crap, it might be okay. We're going to leave it at okay at best. Anybody going to say their paper registration is amazing? Exactly. Oh, there we go. We got one. You took one paper registration last year. So my point is, like, you're doing a lot more work, and it's not necessarily a benefit. And you're losing money if you're on the partner plan because you're not getting rev share. So again, the latecomer angst is all about like, oh my God, I'm waiting in line. And we'll get to, somebody asked about Expo mode versus registration of what to do if people want to register on their phone, what to do on race morning. So we'll get to that in a second. Streamline the race day process for your volunteer staff and registrants. Again, this just speed things up. Like both check-in app and Expo registration speeds things up versus like a paper registration. The finances in one place, including sales tax. Again, something that hasn't really been talked about. Some of you guys might have been dealing with this for a few years. Others of you have not. And the sales tax thing is new. It is real. And you need to be paying attention, not specifically right now because that talk is in the room beside us, but it is something that you need to consider. Even if if it's your event and you are taking cash payments, you are ultimately responsible for sales tax on those cash payments. That's honestly how part of this got started is Somebody actually got dinged for, well, you took in all this money on site, all this cash. Did you pay taxes on that? They're like, no. And thus some of this snowballed. So again, capturing all necessary data fields. We talked about it's Pat. You guys didn't like my joke. I respect that. But still. The integrating real time with giveaway inventories. For some of you, this might not matter. But for those of you that are dealing with the t-shirt inventories, this is huge. The ability to not have 2 stacks of shirts. I'm not just talking to the timers. I'm talking to the race directors. I'm talking to the race owners. So many, remember a show of hands when whoever, I don't remember at the time, it might have been Brian, said, how many of you own races? This is a trend that's happening. This is real. This is helping you. And how many of you guys are using t-shirt inventories? Okay, good. And honestly, it's really good because it is something that really helps out when you're dealing with on-site registrations and managing expectations. And if you can manage those expectations appropriately, then you're in good shape. Even if you sell out, they know you're sold out of the small. They're not going to get upset because they still paid their $35, $40, whatever dollars, and they couldn't select their t-shirt size. So again, their expectation was managed by a computer, not by you listening to them scream. And so obviously it scales. We've talked about that multiple times, and we're syncing with the check-in tools. We talked about this 2 hours ago, whenever it was, in regards to being able to pay with cash or credit, limit fields as necessary. So again, how many of you guys, and I apologize, you guys are going to get like a workout with the hands. Are you guys using Expo mode? Like raise your hand if you're using Expo. Raise your hand if instead you're using Kiosk. Okay, some of you. Raise your hand if you're using primarily SignUp app. Okay, so we talked about this briefly, but by around, I think it's where the push is for springtime into definitely by Thanksgiving at the very latest. Some of these other options aren't going to be viable. I mean, we're not going to be able to pull the app off your phone, so it will still connect, but kiosk mode is going to go away. So all of this, and with that being said, we are doing a revamp on Expo mode. We know that you've mentioned the contrast, like in sunlight, or making the boxes larger so people can see them. We understand what you're saying. We're taking all of that into account. When we send a survey out and you give us feedback as to what would be interesting or what would be helpful with these tools, we got it. We're listening. And so these type of changes are happening. Some back-end changes are happening too with functionality. So it better suits and kind of takes some of the best parts of all three. So we're going in one streamlined direction with one on-site registration option. You can register multiple people. I promise you, if you guys that are using Kiosk and the SignUp app, if you have decent sized races on Thanksgiving, like you're going to get an earful. I promise you, people are going to get PO'd. They're not going to want to come back when they have to stand there and do that same process 3 times, 4 times, 5 times to register their family. Creating and joining teams, all your financials in one place, sales tax, coupons are supported and you can scale quickly. Suggested device. This is my suggestion for Expo mode. My suggestion is a Chromebook or a tablet with a keyboard. You'll see this pop up again, and I'll go ahead and give you the answer before the question. And that is the same thing I'm going to say for the suggested device on check-in is going to be a tablet or a mobile phone with a rear-facing camera. Or if you want to continue using like a Chromebook, please make sure that you are buying one. Like it's all great to buy a refurbed Chromebook for, $85 on Black Friday. There's a reason why it was $85. Its end of life is coming in regards to the support and updates that it's going to get. And I saw somebody chuckle. The funny thing is I was turning on one of my old Chromebooks in the demo room, the ones that if you signed up, and I bought those a couple of years ago for, $120 or something like that. Guess what note I got on my Chromebook today? And it was really fitting that it was today. And that was, your last update or your operating system on this Chromebook will be in the next 15 days. I was like, looks like I get to also buy more equipment. So Chromebook for this with the Google Play Store. Just remember, you do have to have internet access to use this. You do have to have devices for people to register on. They don't necessarily have to be yours. And you must have registration open. The beauty of private expo mode is it leaves regular registration on and completely untouched. And the reason why I suggest private expo mode versus like global is because private, yeah, you can trim down. It's all about bandwidth. You want to get this data in as fast as possible. You want to trim out whatever other questions you don't really care about. If somebody's going to take the time to register on their phone, they're usually so quick at it that for them to enter in any of their other information, number one, they're already logging into RunSignup. So for you to leave address on there, who cares? It's auto-filling. You get what I'm saying? Like it's going to autofill due to whatever autofill settings they have. So for them to complete your entire registration process on their phone, they're not standing in line. They're not waiting behind somebody else. It's a fairly quick process. So why not collect all of that data, which might be helpful for your CRM later?
That's on private expo mode?
Private expo mode. So there's two. When we go to, and this is what it looks like. And you can see private expo mode looks very, very, very much like just normal RunSignup. It's not fancy. But the functionality, the beauty of this is the functionality is equivalent to that of RunSignup. Whereas the other two have limitations, whether it be no teams or you can't register multiple people. USAT memberships. Just keep that in mind. If you're doing multi-sport, that's one thing to consider. I think we've been over this multiple times, so we're not going to talk about it anymore. RaceDay check-in, and we're going to pivot back at the end again to settings and what I would suggest in terms of settings, and also how I would set up. Now, when I say how I would set up a packet pickup area, I'm not talking about John back there in his rock and roll marathon. All right. So you start dealing with 20, 30, 40,000 people, you got a little different animal, right? However, for your events that are maybe in the 200 to 5,000 person range, my suggestion will work out just fine. And the average race size is around anywhere from 200 to 750 athletes. So RunSignup's RaceDay check-in, you can assign bib numbers, check participant in, manage event transfers, manage other transfers as well. You can make any other kind of, like you can make multiple other kind of changes in there. Insightful reporting of who's checked in and when. So you can go into, once you're checked in, if you download your entire database, you can actually go in and see who checked that person in, which might not seem helpful, like off the top of your head. But then magically, when you start seeing issues and you can go in and see who checked that person in and there was an issue with it. Now you see another person. It happens to be the same person. Okay, guess who's not coming back to packet pickup? So again, we've talked about facilitating inventories and it auto syncs with the RaceDay suite of tools. So I'm going to go ahead and fast forward through some of this. This is a normal dynamic packet pickup situation. They do not give a t-shirt in this. This video is 32 seconds long. And my problem with it is it's too slow. So most of you who have used dynamic bib assignment, you've also used the QR code replacement tags on your pre-event email within RunSignup. You can get this down to 15, 17 seconds quite easily. And that's with handing out a t-shirt. So this guy handed his photo ID. She's manually searching for it. He's probably looking for his registration. The bib was turned face down. Anybody want to guess why it was turned face down? There's nothing on the back. Some of it were close. You are going to end up running the name on the back. The reason behind that is I found that a lot of these volunteers get to the check-in and get to that person. They hit the green button to check them in, and they start talking to them. And it'll read a QR code if it's pointed just right. Not the one they have right here, but the one over in that stack, because they're sitting there talking to them. So if you have it flipped over, you're only flipping over one, and so you can flip it back over once that's checked in. I'm going to do this one last time. So again, photo ID, she searches for the person. She's got a Sharpie. They like pens. I like Sharpies. Sharpies sometimes do bleed through, depending on the thickness of your tie back. So if you use a super thick Sharpie, that's how it works. You see how she hits check-in, You can see how it focused on that QR code and it automatically populated the bib number, and then she hits assign and writes the information on the back, hands it off. And she tells them t-shirts are in the next room. Suggested device, again, mobile device with rear-facing camera. The reason behind rear-facing camera is you can scan QR codes with it. Forward-facing camera only, you cannot do that. I know we've talked about this reporting. How many of you have actually had a conversation with your race director about these check-in app reports? Anyone? One? You start getting to bigger events. And by bigger, I don't mean huge. I mean like 500 people. And I'm not joking about this. This is great for like, oh great, we had this many people checked in. It's a okay report. You can download the people checked in, not checked in, no big deal. Start getting into bigger events where you start talking about how many people have checked in over time and how many devices you have running at any given time. Magically, you can start seeing trends. Because guess what? Do we need as many people at 9:30 in the morning? Nope. But for some reason at 4 o'clock, people start showing up. And yeah, you can't see behind there, but at 7 o'clock, you can kind of see the line as it comes down. 7 o'clock, it drops back off. Well, this event happened to have dinner in 2 different seatings on site, just beside Packet Pickup. And they had the same number of people at Packet Pickup the whole time. Well, now next year, they know that they don't need all of these people at any given time. They maxed out at 58 people per 5 minutes. So if you hover your mouse over any of these, or your cursor, or whatever you call it, it will give you a breakdown of what device, how many people they checked in that 5-minute period. I will say this. There is a device on here that checked in 13 people in that 5 minutes. They were busy, right? Nope. That device name is iOS RD CheckIn. I don't know if you guys know this, but if you go into your app, on the home page where you're scrolling through your events, does anybody, I don't want to out everybody, but like, has anybody not used the app before? A couple people maybe? 1, 2, 3. If you go to the home screen on the app when you're searching for your event, the bottom, there's a gear. You can click that gear and you can change your device name. The default device name on my iPhone, iOS RD CheckIn. The default device name for your Android, I think it's Android. Yeah, Android RD CheckIn. So if you don't change your device names and you want to see this pretty menagerie of colors here, you have to change your device names. Otherwise, it groups them together. So if you don't change your device names, and I should have put another picture up of the day before or 2 days before when they had 3 people checking folks in and they didn't change the device names and they showed me the report. They're like, what? Why does it not show 3 lines? It only shows 1. Well, they were all 3 using iOS devices and none of them changed their device name. The other thing about that is we don't know who was who checking people in. So if you want to go back and try to pinpoint any issues, you've got a hard time figuring out who checked what. So setting up the check-in app is quite easy. You do have to go into RaceDay check-in app. You have to put your password in. I do believe it has to have uppercase, lowercase, and a number. And then you need to make sure your check-in start and end are outside of now. So usually I set, to be honest, most of my check-ins they open on January 1st and they close the day after the event because it's password protected. And so there's no reason that it can't be open right now. Unless you tell everybody in the world what your password is for your check-in app, you can go in and test, play, whatever you want to do. So then you go in to your app, click on your event, put in your password, go into settings, you can change your settings, go into check-in. So some of the settings. in settings, there's two different things that we use within that. And that is we use presets and configurations. Preset is for a specific event. And by event, it could be a 5K, 10K, or if you have a completely different event for Clydesdale or wheelchair division. If it's a custom question, you can't do it. Like, it's only by event. Does that make sense? So if you're doing a triathlon, and within that triathlon, the way you're divvying out your Clydesdales, Athenas, novices, collegiates, elites versus age groups is a custom question, which is my suggestion to do it that way. But if you do it that way, you cannot have separate preset selections for those different categories, which realistically, you probably don't need them. Normally for an event, I have like a setting for timed athletes and untimed athletes, or individuals and relays. And so for individuals, what you do is when you can go in and edit the default preset. However, you now have no idea which preset you're using and what you've done there. So I always add the preset, and you jump into here, you set your preset name, bib number. If you make that required, now the person, I've had multiple people say, well, the reason why this person didn't have a bib number assigned is because it didn't force the volunteer to add a bib number. This, right here, bib number required. That's how you force that bib number to be assigned. Group bib number. If you guys, and it's dependent on your timing system in regards to group bib number. For instance, if you're using RaceDay scoring or race director, using group bib number is fine for your relays. If you're using run score, it's not fine. And I would point you towards, since I'm not a super user of run score, I can point you towards people. If you have a bunch of relays and need to know how to do that, I will point you towards those people. But I do know that run score doesn't like group bib numbers. Got it? Again, if you don't time relays, doesn't matter. Require waiver. For that last talk, I don't know, I'm assuming most of you guys were in the last one. This is where you require the waiver, right here. If that's required, and they haven't signed it, you imported that person, you can now get that waiver on the check-in app. I don't believe the waiver signature is supported on Android devices for some reason.
I think you just typed it.
Okay, so it's typed in. So it's slightly different on Androids than iOS.
Is this whole setup being done on the app?
On the app, yes.
It's not on the computer.
Correct. My apologies. These are screenshots from my phone. Once you turn on the app, you go into the app itself. You can also set these up on your Chromebook, but you have to go into the app to set settings. So once you get in here, you can show the bib number or not. All of these are display or not display functions. And so my suggestion, if you have pre-assigned bibs and you're using bibs under number 100, so like 1 to 100, a lot of times I will remove the age. And that is because volunteers are great at seeing a number and assuming that that's no matter what the bib number. And so you'll start handing out bib number 35 to somebody who's 35 years old. Okay? Just a suggestion, if you're pre-assigning bibs and you're using them 100 and under. Removing the age, again, I normally select giveaway. You guys might not, it's your prerogative there. Registration date. If you're doing a different way of giveaways and you need to know that registration date, click that. So prevent duplicate bibs, validate. Those are functions of like, so you don't reassign bibs. And validation is basically once it's assigned, it's not going to be reassigned, even though that person drops out. The clear search after check-in, again, that's your choice. This auto show camera after bib assignment, that is what you have to have on if you want, when you hit the check-in button, you want the camera to pop up. So you can just scan it really quickly. You can still use that camera, but you have to hit the top right corner to get to the camera. And it's a manual it's just one more step. People don't do well with tons of steps. And if you're doing group relay, something like that, and you select this, you can actually search by group name or relay team name. But you have to have that setting selected. So once you get all of these configured, all of this stuff up here configured, you end up saving it, coming back out, and you upload the configuration to the cloud. You set a configuration name, and now you have to do this once. And now you can open up your second device, and you just go straight into settings, straight down, and right underneath this, there'll be a blue thing. There's whatever your configuration 1. It'll be right there. And you just select that, hit the back arrow, off and running. Yes?
Can you talk about the left data display?
So yeah, the left and right data display. So when you're on the check-in app, if you don't have anything on the left data display, there's 3 columns. Basically, nothing shows nothing in that column. So you'll have an X and a bib number are your options for these. So basically, if you're doing dynamic check-in and it doesn't really matter if there's something in there because everybody that is unchecked in has no bib number. So it's just going to say NA. For those of you going through the check-in demo, you saw that some people had green checks and red X's. So that is the check-in status. There would also be another column that is bib number if you want that to display too. The only problem sometimes I run into with if bib number's on there and it's a smaller event, the volunteer will just see John Smith 555 not checked in, red X. And they already know what the bib number is, so they just hand them a bib number. So they don't actually check them in. So some other ways to improve RaceDay check-in. Set up a conference call with your RaceDay leads. And by this, I mean your volunteer team if you're not going to be there. I know a number of you aren't physically at packet pickup. And so doing whether it be a Google Meetup or something like that, so you can do a screen share and walk them through the process. Matt actually showed me a really cool feature. If you want to walk them through your check-in app on, say, your iPhone, you can download QuickTime, and you can use QuickTime to mirror your phone on your screen. A number of you have done demos with me, and a number of you that have done demos with me have how am I seeing your phone on the screen? It's just QuickTime. That's it. It's a really cool function. And so it's a pretty cool way to remotely train the people that are going to be on site. And then I know people who are Pelican casing up iPads that are preloaded and ready to go. And it's pretty slick how they just deploy those. They just turn them on, and there's a sticker on there that tells them what the 4-digit code is to get into the iPad, off and running. Already got the presets on there, everything like that. So I would run through yourself through registration and check-in. I'm registered for a lot of races, and I run not a lot of races. That's how you test to make sure things are working. So again, test, and then just double check that the settings are what you need them to be. It's doing this kind of training is super helpful. The other thing I would suggest is a check-in, check-out procedure. And this is probably something that most of you are not doing, but a check-in, check-out procedure for volunteer devices. Raise your hand in here if anyone is doing that. So what I'm saying this for is a volunteer, unless you can one-on-one, make sure if you're using volunteer devices, because raise your hand if you're using volunteer devices for check-in. Nobody? Okay, a number of you are. So those volunteer devices, my suggestion would be to have that volunteer check in with you. You log in, you put in the password to Expo or to the check-in app. You make sure the configuration's set. If you want to, you can lock the device, and then you hand them and show them how to check someone in. When you check out, you have them come back, you double check that there's no queued edits, and we'll talk about that, but that there's no queued edits, so nothing is stored in their device that hasn't been pushed up online, and you delete the database, and you hand them back the device. So now they can't re-enter into the device or they can't get back into the race. And again, it sounds like I'm being super picky about this, but somebody could potentially go in and clear things out if you're not careful. I've never once heard of that happening, but I mean, it's something to consider. And people have asked multiple times about data security. That is one foolproof way of ensuring that your volunteer's not going home with any other information. So check-in app and Expo mode are both password protected. You can turn them on today, like I mentioned. Set them, test them, So setting up a registration check-in area. This is less of pictures and more of me just explaining how I would set this up. If we were doing packet pickup in this room and people were coming in and we wanted like dynamic bib assignment, packet pickup, all right here. So what I would have was have my normal packet pickup tables right here as people were walking in. I would end up with registration over there on the kiosk with a treasurer, registrar, whoever touches the money. As the timer, it's not me. And I'm dead serious. You guys can touch everybody else's money as much as you want to. But the moment they question your integrity about finances, now you've got a weird problem on your hands. And it's not necessarily your fault. So I like for someone on their team to be the one handling the money. That person over there has the Chromebooks, and they also have the cache password or offline payment password for the Chromebooks. So everyone that hasn't registered, they do it over there away from this area. So once they register, there's a cache of about 15 to 30 seconds from registration to showing up on the check-in app. For those of you that walked through the demo, if you registered and immediately stepped over, there's like a off chance that you weren't on there yet. Anybody that wasn't on there yet? A couple of you? Did you wait 30 seconds and then you were, yeah, see? And the funny thing is, if you don't have it over there and you have it like right here and right here, now you've got, oh, I'm not in there. Wait, I just registered, I just paid. If you have it over there, by the time they walk from that corner to right here, they're in, right? So in that scenario where they just registered, scrolling, number one, it only pulls in, I think about 100 people or so. It's not many for scrolling, like just manually scrolling through your participant list. The search function is the best option. Even if you have a 50-person race, it will take them longer to show up in the scroll than it will for them to search. Like if you go into the demo room, it might take an extra, 20 or 30 seconds for your name to actually just populate on the list, scrolling up and down. So as people are coming in, you can have the t-shirts behind, you can have the t-shirts in another room. But again, like you saw in the video, it's a great explanation of how I would suggest doing this. And that is having people right here that are pleasant with a mobile device, whether it be iPad. I mean, you can do it on Chromebook with Google Play, on the app as well. But typing in, searching, scanning, assigning the bib, and always writing personally, again, first name and t-shirt size on the back of the bib, even if they're just picking up for themselves. Why? Because they're picking up for themselves. Then their wife or husband comes in like 5 minutes later because they were using the bathroom, and they both get in the car, throw their bibs in the center console because they're both riding together tomorrow. And now who's number 1123 and who's number 1155? Right? Most of them aren't thinking, oh, I can just log into RunSignup and look at my registration and it'll say it in there. So now you got a 50-50 shot of John winning the female category. Does that scenario make sense in terms of, because a number of people have asked, like they want packet pickup, or they want for registration, late registration and packet pickup for late registration to all be in the same place. So the reason why I wouldn't put the bibs over there, and I've seen this at events, I'm sure you guys have seen it too. There's a line for packet pickup. There's no line for registration. Somebody comes into late registration, they register, they pay, they grab their bib, they grab their t-shirt, they're out the door. Somebody they came with that registered fill in the blank time ago that's not right now is still in line. So that's, to me, a problem. You're encouraging people to register late to some degree. So again, if everybody has the same experience, you don't have to have bibs over there. All the bibs are over here. You don't have shirts over there. All the shirts are over here. You don't have to have a late pile because your inventories are managed within the registration on RunSignup, and it's showing, and anytime I do those inventories, I put in an additional shirt size called no shirt. Because once small, medium, large, extra large, double extra large are gone, if you don't have a no shirt option, it actually hangs it up. Like it won't let them continue registering because it's a mandatory field. So if you are going to use inventories, I mean, heck, you can add no shirt to every single one of your events. What does it matter? Somebody's just telling you, I'm registering for the same price. I don't want a shirt. Okay, cool.
That's why, because it won't let them check out without actually picking the shirt size.
It won't let them get past that step.
Okay.
Yep, it's one because you're putting it as a mandatory field within the registration path.
So it doesn't know that you run out of shirts. It just needs to know that there's no shirt option.
No, it knows that you've run out of shirts. It knows that you've run out of shirts, but you're not selected anything because there's nothing to select. So because they can't select small because it says sold out, it's grayed out. So no shirt, you can put no inventory or 1 million or whatever, and it'll be the only thing. It'll show the other sizes, but it'll be the only thing that's black. Everything else will be gray. Yep. And then in the check-in app, there's no question. It's not blank. It doesn't say giveaway : blank.
Right.
It says giveaway : no shirt. Yep. And I mean, the check-in app's great to show other things as well. Like, for instance, if you're doing races for, like, say, a minor league baseball team where they're selling additional game tickets, you can show that within the check-in app so you don't have to go through and staple all the bibs in advance. Like, I don't know how many events you guys have like this, but I have one very similar where it's like, if I had to staple all these to a specific bib with a label on it, I mean, it would take me 2 days worth of work to do it all. But instead, I can have it on the app, and they pick up their tickets when they pick up their packet, and we staple it at the time. So I think, obviously, we keep telling you to visit the demo room, and we keep saying this, but we don't, I mean, yes, go visit the demo room, and I'm also, after we still have a couple minutes after this, and I'm going to run through like some setup options, like how to. For those of you doing the advanced track tomorrow, if you're doing certified, you're going to be in a different session. But if you're doing advanced track, I will be going through like specific setup. We'll be doing a test, Expo mode setup, registration, check-in, basically everything you did in the demo room. We'll be doing like live on your computer. So either one of those sessions, whether it be advanced track or the certification track, you will need your computer tomorrow. So let's see, 6:15 in the morning. If you don't want to run, that's cool. You can eat donuts with me. And we will be forward-facing some large screens of what we're doing. So you'll be able to see like a race view of RaceJoy. So the cool thing about RaceJoy, I will say, is there is an admin view that those dots, you as a backend user can see that and you can display it forward. No one else can see all the dots running around. So you have to share that outward. We'll be showing that. We'll be showing the results. We'll be showing RaceDay scoring as it's happening. If you want to touch equipment or, I mean, whatever you want to do, we can make that happen while we're messing around. It's a fun run for learning. If we want to mess up Brian Jenkins' time, we can mess up his time, make him like 2-hour 5K. Just because we have a few more minutes, I am going to go because I know some of you guys are in the certification track. So I want to make sure that you guys know how to set things up. So setting up private Expo mode, you would go into Go RaceDay, RaceDay Registration, and Expo mode. There's two options here. Enable Global Expo mode, enable Private Expo mode. So by enabling Private Expo mode, you click that, and it'll bring up like what, 1, 2, 3 more buttons and 2 password areas. So by clicking that, the thing just below it is, I know I've marked it out with that line, but it basically says only allow registration through Private Expo mode. So you might have an event that you need to shut down registration and only have it in that corner back there for fill in the blank reason. We all have these race directors that have the weirdest needs, and that can be one of them. And if you click that button, when someone goes to register on RunSignup, like on the normal page, it's going to say, we're sorry, registration is only available at the kiosk. Or I don't know, it's something like that. And I think you can actually change that text. So the password, the Expo mode password is a single time use per device. So Expo mode password, I usually make it something fairly simple, but like once I get here on race morning, I type it in that one time. If the computer gets closed, reopen, and goes back to that site, it's saved. You don't have to enter it again. It's not for the athlete to enter. It's just to get into Expo mode. This offline payment password, which in due time might get called the cache password or something like that, is just that. It's like a cache password. So it could be something like, I think the cache password or offline payment password of the demo room is CASH, cache. It can be super short, and the only person that needs to know that is the person touching dollar bills. Period. Do not say that out loud, because if other people know it, while they're registering, they put in the cache password and hit enter, it'll just allow them to register, get their bib, all that, and they don't have to pay. All right? Does that make sense? Don't share cache password with athletes. And then finally, you have a link right here. And it says private Expo mode, and there's a link. Now, the whole point of Expo mode is being able to register and not be logged in. So fair warning, if you click that link at this point, all that'll happen is this page will be private Expo mode, and when you go back to RunSignup, you'll have to log in. And I only say that because I do a whole lot of demos on this stuff, and every time I click to show people private Expo mode, it kicks me out of RunSignup, and I have to log back in with my MFA during the demo. So just keep that in mind. Like if you're testing it on your computer, it will log you out of RunSignup, which is exactly what it's supposed to do. So the second part of this is if you want to limit questions within Expo mode is fast registration. So you can either memorize, go to RaceDay Registration, fast registration options, or if you're not as smart like me, you just go to this super handy menu search button right there, and you type in the word fast. It's the only option under that. So if you type in the word fast registration options, you scroll to the bottom, and it'll say, enable fast registrations on Expo mode registration. At that point, you can remove whatever you want to. So currently, I have a number of things removed, but I have this right here. Allow participants to register without creating an account. If you do nothing else, go into private Expo mode, turn it on, go in to fast registration, and for the love of God, click that button. I don't care what else you turn off, you will end up frustrating a lot of folks if they have to create passwords on site. Okay? Some of the other things I turn off a lot of times, again, I'm not suggesting this for like USAT events or anything, and that's USA Triathlon for non-USA Triathlon race directors. A lot of times I'll remove street address and phone number. I'm never going to mail you anything. I'm never going to call you. I do leave on the city, state, country, and zip code because within the fast registration, they actually get to zip code first. They fill out their 5-digit zip code. It autofills all the other information. So why not leave that in? Get your CRM data for regional marketing for 5 digits because it'll autofill the moment they type it in. So this is what it looks like with fast registration mode. Most of you guys have already been in the demo room, so you've seen it. It asked me my email address once. Get to the end, got my offline payment code and processing fee in there. If you scroll down just a bit, you can see where it says credit card information. So I applied that offline payment code, which is apparently not CASH for this event. Processing fee went to 0, and so now $10 is owed. At this point, we're assuming that you take that $10, and it got cut off right underneath here, but it says just below there, confirm $10. And once you click that confirm $10, it says congratulations, just like you registered with the credit card. And the assumption is that someone handed you money because you put in that offline payment code.
One thing I really like to do with Expo mode that a lot of people overlook is a really simple thing. Just Control or Command +++, make the screen a little bit bigger. It makes a huge difference on RaceSite if the font size and the box sizes are larger. So I just maximize it until the UI starts looking funky. So it'll be super clear if you just do that. Control +++++. It zooms everything in, makes it a whole lot easier to read.
Giveaway inventories. It sounds like a lot of you guys are already doing this. That's under giveaways and add-ons, giveaway inventory. If you need additional instruction on this one, since we're just about out of time, I'd be more than happy to walk through that with you. Optimizing check-in, like we kind of talked about earlier, test this out in advance. train your people in advance, get there on site early, and make sure it's set up and working. And then review the check-in reports post-race. And I would monitor check-in periodically just to make sure there's no queued edits. I do have, when this gets published, it'll have like some suggested presets. You don't have to scribble these down, but these are just some of the suggested presets for the check-in app that I would tell you to use. Are there any questions? Because I know we covered a lot.
In the check-in app, what do you do if somebody comes and says, I don't want to do CC, I want to come to 5?
So you can change, the question was if someone wants to change events, within the check-in app settings, you can allow within the application change of event. And so during the check-in process, there'll be blue buttons underneath that says change event, and then there'll be like I don't remember if it's radio or drop down, but you can change event at that point. Yes?
Should it allow you to change the bid number as well?
Yes. So the question was, will it allow you to change the bib number? And the answer is yes. If they're not yet checked in, you might have to hit check in, and then again, it's a setting that you have that says allow for clear bib, I think it is. And if you have that checked, then it'll have a red button that says uncheck in and clear bib. So you can do one versus the other and change the bib.
Chris, when you do that, can you reuse the bid?
If you don't have that bib validation on,
Okay.
that's what that bib validation is. And if you have bib validation within RunSignup turned on, the answer is no, you can't reuse the bib. Bib validation is used when you have like personalized bibs, like Samantha's name's on bib number 1111, and she decides to defer, but you've already ordered the bibs. You don't want bib number 1111 going back into the population because it's got her name on it, and Jeffrey doesn't want to run with her name. Yes?
You uploaded those configurations in the app. Is there a way to get, let's say you're at an event and the race director wants something else. Do you overwrite the configuration or can you delete it?
So you can't delete the configurations at this point. What you can do, and what I normally suggest doing, is, so what you're going to want to do at that point is you're going to want to change a preset, right? So you go into your device, even if you're not on site, and you can change the or I would update the preset, resave it as like preset B.
Save it as something else.
Right, save it as number 2 or number 3. Do something consecutive so it makes sense. And then you're going to go down and upload the configuration and change it to 2, 3, 4. And then all you have to do is explain, if you're on site, you just go to each device and upload the new configuration. That rolls out as needed for all the devices. The same thing with Expo mode. If you accidentally, let's say you remove address, and the race director is like, oh, no, we need address for like reason. If you want to deploy a change on that, you do not have to be on site. All you have to do is on the back end, go into fast registration options, change that, like unclick the address button, save it, and it deploys without you having to do anything. That change deploys to all the devices running Expo mode. Okay? If you don't want a setting on there, or you want to remove more settings, you can do that as well in the same fashion. Yes?
So the check-in app is not going away?
Check-in app is not going away.
Despite the message that we get saying it's going away.
Yeah. Are you sure you're not talking about runsignup.com/checkin? What color is your icon? What color is the app? Black or blue?
No, when I go to my dashboard, I go to check it out. Down at the bottom, I get a message saying.
I think that's the runsignup.com/checkin, which is like it phased out like 2 years ago, but for some reason we randomly get support calls on it periodically, which is very confusing. So the check-in app is 100% still in use and not being taken away. The blue one, the two-tone blue one. If you're using the black one, you'll notice if you get an event about over 750 people, maybe 1,000, it'll drop out and you'll get a white screen and it'll just go away. So I wouldn't use the black one ever, and we don't support it anymore. So there's that. There's a question in the back, I think. No? Okay.
Is there an easy or smooth recommended way? Like, let's say I create a new set of custom presets to auto-populate that, say, at another race, either from the time or the partner side?
So the question is an easy way to share presets from event to event. And right now the answer is no. There aren't like partner level or timer level presets that you can roll out. But I mean, I would be hard pressed to think that it's not something that like, is considered in the dev side. But I mean, right now, no, there's not. However, again, going back to setup, going through all those setups and downtime, you can quite quickly roll that out when you're not like having to deal with like everything else.
Right. Yeah, but what we find is sometimes we might at one race discover, oh yeah, it would be nice to do this different, and then we gotta go back and change that. You know, whereas if we had this like master thing and we change it there, boom, it populates it.
Got it. I agree. For sure. Noted. Yes.
Two real quick questions. One, talked about the scanning the QR code, ability to scan a barcode?
Yes, but both work. And so when they get a confirmation email, you don't have to send anything out. On their confirmation email, they get a QR and a barcode. So if they just happen to bring that, they can scan those.
Well, a lot of bibs, you can get the barcode
right.
free with QR code.
So on any, I was talking about custom bibs in that regard. So you have to pay for bar or QR. But yes, on I think Road ID bibs, there's already a barcode on there. I think some of the other stock bibs that you can get for fairly inexpensive have barcodes. And yes, that works. The key is it's a text, and all it does is point at the bib number. So if you ever look at the text right above the barcode, if it's bib number like 1002, the text right above it says star 1002 star, and that's a start bib number stop. And so it's just a font. It's like font 3/5 or something like that. So yeah.
Second question, real briefly, what's the difference between private expo mode and global expo?
So global expo mode takes everything and applies those changes to everything, which is rarely what you want. So again, in my opinion, if somebody's filling everything out on their phone, them creating an account is probably not a bad thing because they're not really being inconvenienced that much since they're on their personal device. If they're standing in line to use your device, it's a headache. But when they're one-off, not so much. And if they're registering their whole family, they don't create an account for their whole, those other people become sub-accounts of theirs. So, but you have one person that creates an account. Yes?
Just curious if anyone here has a solution other than writing names on the back of bibs. I know if you're familiar with Emotive, they have the thermal printers that spit out a label automatically upon check-in. That's something I'm talking to Eric about. But if someone else has a different solution.
So the question was, does anybody have a solution for other than printing names on the back, or not printing, sorry, writing names on the back of bibs? There's another solution from another provider that has a thermal printer that can sticker.
Yeah, prints
out a sticker.
And prints live. Everybody that registers or the race is on, we keep registration open or print some colored whatever else.
Say that one more time.
We print some labels right out front, so not with your pre-template, but with the color printer.
Right.
It prints the corral color that they're registering for, and we stick those on it. Live. Yeah, I know, but we're not. Yeah.
So they're doing it, but not dynamically.
So corrals, but not names.
So corral color with names, but not dynamically assigned. Okay. Any other questions? Cool. Well, thank you guys.